There's a moment, maybe you felt it recently, when something inside you just stops. It's not quite burnout, not quite depression. It's a subtle click of internal defeat. A quiet moment when you realize nothing is working. Not the books, not the habits, not the early mornings, the cold showers, the goals you tape to your bathroom mirror. You keep trying to move forward, but your reality keeps looping. Like you're stuck in a scene you've already lived too many times. You wake up with good intentions, but by 10 a.m., you're already drained. You set new goals, but they vanish into distraction. You feel like a stranger to your own potential, like life is happening around you, but not through you. You're functioning, you're surviving, but deep down, you know you're not here, not fully. You've drifted away from the version of you that once felt electric, magnetic, undeniable, and maybe now, you're starting to wonder if that version was ever real. This isn't about motivation. This isn't about working harder or learning faster. This is something deeper, something most people never talk about. What you're experiencing is what I call energetic dissonance. Your external life is out of sync with your internal field. You're doing all the right things but broadcasting the wrong frequency. And because of that, the universe isn't responding with progress. It's responding with resistance. You've probably heard it 1,000 times, you become what you think about. But here's the deeper truth one. Most people miss you don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. And what you are is determined by the signal you're putting out, moment by moment. That signal is made up of your beliefs, your emotions, your memories, and your identity. Not what you say you want, but what you deeply expect. And right now, the reason everything feels stuck is because you're operating on an outdated frequency, an identity you didn't even consciously choose, one built from childhood conditioning, old wounds, limiting narratives, quiet fears you never voiced aloud. And as long as you're vibrating from that place, no vision board, no manifestation technique, no planner in the world will change your trajectory, because you're still trying to build a new life from the foundation of the old you. Here's the truth you weren't taught. Life doesn't change when you do more. It changes when you become different. And becoming different doesn't take years of therapy or 10,000 hours of practice. In fact, it doesn't take time at all. It takes a shift in state, a shift in signal, a shift in identity. And that shift can happen in seconds when you understand the field you're living in and the power you've forgotten you have. What you need isn't another strategy. What you need is a reset, not a slow recalibration, not a wait-and-see adjustment, a full, deep, quantum reset. One that realigns your entire frequency from the inside out. One that clears out the static of the old you and brings in the signal of who you were meant to be. Not someday, but in the next 48 hours. Because change doesn't happen gradually. It happens instantly, and then reality takes time to catch up. The key is learning how to trigger that moment on demand. That's what this is about. So if you're tired of false starts, of slow fades, of feeling like your transformation is always just out of reach, then lean in. Because what comes next isn't a pep talk. It's a reprogramming, a remembering, a rapid shift in your energetic blueprint that can rewrite the next chapter of your life before the weekend is over. And to understand why everything you've tried before has failed, you have to start with one uncomfortable truth: you've been trying to change the world around you without changing the broadcast within you. Let's talk about why that's never worked and why it never will. Let's be honest. You've worked hard. You've read the self-help books. You've done the journaling. You've tried positive thinking, morning routines, visualization boards, and trusting the process. But no matter what you tried, something kept pulling you back into the same emotions, the same reactions, the same internal exhaustion masked by performance. That's not because you're lazy. It's not because you're undisciplined or unworthy. It's because the strategies you were using were built to fix the surface, while the real problem lived deeper. Underneath all of it was an identity, a self-image, a subconscious field running the show. And you were never shown how to reset that. Here's what nobody told you. You can't fix a vibrational problem with a behavioral solution. You were taught to push harder, not to pause deeper. You were taught to make more effort, not to realign your energy. So every time you tried to change your life, what you were really doing was stacking a new behavior on top of an old belief system. And of course it collapsed. Why? Because your subconscious wasn't on board. See, the subconscious isn't logical, it's protective. Its job is to keep you safe, not successful. It's designed to return you to what's familiar, not what's empowering. So even if your conscious mind says, I want wealth, if your body associates money with stress, shame, or abandonment, your system will short-circuit that goal every time. That's the invisible resistance you've been fighting, and it doesn't go away just because you want it to. When you set a goal but don't believe you're worthy of it, when you say you're ready, but your nervous system is still bracing for rejection, when you visualize your dream life, but your emotional body is still locked in a survival loop from 5 years ago, that's not ambition, that's energetic conflict. And energetic conflict always wins. Most people don't fail because they lack willpower. They fail because they're unknowingly broadcasting the frequency of fear, guilt, or unworthiness, while asking the universe to deliver peace, abundance, and clarity. It doesn't work like that. You don't get what you affirm. You get what you emit. This is why so many people burn out trying to become better. They're not upgrading. They're just overcompensating for a signal that's out of tune. You've probably been told that life responds to effort. But in the quantum field, life responds to frequency. And your frequency isn't set by what you do. It's set by what you believe, by what you expect, by who you think you are at your core. So if you keep taking action from an outdated identity, one that says, I'm not enough, it's too late for me, or I'll never get it right, then no amount of action will create lasting change. Because every action is being filtered through a distorted field. A field shaped by old wounds, inherited fear, societal programming, and emotional debris. That's why the old ways failed you. Not because the goals were wrong, but because the version of you chasing them wasn't aligned with receiving them. It's like trying to tune into a radio station while broadcasting static. You might catch glimpses of the signal, but you'll always fall out of alignment again. That's what you've been feeling. Temporary motivation, followed by crash. Clarity, then confusion. Momentum, then collapse. But now you know. It was never about the routine, never about the productivity hacks. It was about the frequency behind the action. And here's the good news. Once you stop trying to fix the old version of you, you can collapse it entirely. You can stop broadcasting the signal of the past and start transmitting something radically new. Something coherent, something magnetic, something powerful. You can't effort your way into a new life, but you can reset your frequency and let life meet you there. And when you do, reality stops reflecting your programming and starts reflecting your potential. But before we shift into how to reset that frequency, we need to zoom out. Because the key to this entire process lies not in another habit, but in understanding how the field itself works, scientifically, spiritually, and energetically. To unlock the reset, you must first understand the machine. Most people think reality is fixed, objective, unchanging. But quantum physics tells us something radically different. The world around you doesn't exist in a fixed state. It responds to the way you observe it. This is the observer effect. In every quantum experiment, particles behave one way when unobserved, and a completely different way when observed. In other words, your attention literally alters the behavior of energy. You're not just watching reality, you're shaping it. Now take that in, because that means you're not powerless. You're not stuck. You're not waiting for the universe to give you a sign. You are the sign. You're the tuner, the transmitter, the projector, and the frequency you emit through your thoughts, emotions, and state of being doesn't just influence your experience. It creates it. This is where science meets soul. Because what ancient mystics taught in metaphors, modern physicists now confirm in equations. Reality isn't something outside of you. It's an echo chamber of your internal state. And when your energy is scattered, when your thoughts, emotions, and body are all pulling in different directions, you create incoherence, static, resistance, and reality responds in kind. That's why your manifestations feel delayed. That's why your progress feels inconsistent. You're sending out a fragmented signal, and the field is reflecting it back. But when your internal world becomes coherent, when your thoughts align with your emotions, when your nervous system is regulated, when your identity is clear, then something powerful happens. Reality bends. Timelines shift. People change around you. Doors open without you pushing them. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Your frequency synchronized, and coherence creates magnetism. There's another concept you need to know: quantum entanglement. In short, it means that two particles, once connected, can influence each other instantly, no matter how far apart they are. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. But spiritually, it means that your highest self, your future timeline, your next level life, they already exist. They're already entangled with you. And when you change your internal frequency to match that future, the connection activates. You don't chase the timeline. You become the vibrational match for it, and it finds you. This is why so many people who experience deep spiritual awakening say the same thing. It felt like I didn't do anything. Everything just aligned. That's because they stopped broadcasting the old signal of fear, doubt, and control. They let go. They tuned in. They remembered. You don't manifest what you obsess over. You manifest what you're coherent with. This isn't just theory. It's how reality works on the quantum level. But here's the kicker. You can't fake coherence. You can't say, "I'm aligned," while your body is tense, your breath is shallow, and your gut is clenched in anxiety. The field doesn't hear your words. It reads your vibration. So the work isn't in saying the right thing. It's in becoming the right frequency. And this is why trying harder has never worked. Because every time you push from a place of panic, you reinforce the signal of not enough. Every time you hustle from a place of fear, you amplify the frequency of lack. The field responds, not to your effort, but to your energy. So, what does this mean for you right now? It means if you can shift your internal state, you can reset your external world. It means coherence isn't just a feel-good state. It's the access point to all timelines. It's the portal between the version of you that's surviving and the version of you that's thriving. And it starts, not with action, but with signal. This is why spiritual teachers have always said, be still, be present, remember who you are. Because in stillness, you stop collapsing the infinite into the familiar. You give space for a new frequency to arise, one that doesn't come from memory, but from possibility. So the question is no longer, how do I get there? The question is, can I tune to it? Can I become the version of me that already lives in that reality and hold that vibration long enough for the world to catch up? Because the moment you do, time folds, resistance fades, synchronicity begins, and what once felt far away becomes inevitable. But don't just take this as knowledge. Let's bring it into practice. Now that you understand how the field works, let's talk about why your system keeps pulling you back, even when you try to change. The next key is hidden, not in the science, but in your subconscious. If you've ever felt like you're making progress, only to watch yourself self-sabotage a week later, you're not alone. If you've ever taken 2 steps forward, only to snap back into an old pattern, there's a reason for that. And it's not weakness, it's not failure, it's wiring. Your nervous system right now is calibrated to your past, not your potential. You've been trained to think in terms of willpower. But in truth, willpower is like trying to steer a ship from the top deck, while the autopilot below continues to follow its old course. Unless you rewrite the subconscious instructions, the ship will always return to what it knows, even if what it knows is pain. That's the trap of transformation most people never escape. They think awareness is enough. But awareness without integration is like watching a fire burn your house down and thinking that observation will put it out. Real change happens not when you notice the pattern, but when you rewire the signal beneath it. And that means confronting something most people avoid: safety. Your subconscious doesn't care if you're happy. It cares if you're safe. And safe, to your system, means familiar. So if you grew up around chaos, uncertainty, scarcity, or criticism, those things now feel like home to your nervous system, which means your system will unconsciously seek them out, recreate them, or sabotage anything that threatens to replace them. Let that sink in. The love you say you want? If it feels too calm, too easy, your body might reject it. The abundance you're calling in? If it threatens your identity as the struggler, you might unconsciously block it. The clarity you're chasing? If you've defined yourself through confusion and overthinking, letting go of that noise might feel like ego death. This is identity collapse, and it's terrifying because it feels like losing yourself. But what you're actually losing is the version of you that was never real. The persona you built to survive, to belong, to stay safe in a world that taught you to dim. So here's the truth you need to hear. You're not stuck because of your circumstances. You're stuck because you keep trying to heal without letting the old identity die. And that death isn't metaphorical. It's energetic, emotional, biological. Your brain has to prune old neural pathways. Your nervous system has to unlearn its baseline of stress. Your subconscious has to update the image it holds of who you are. And yes, it's uncomfortable. You'll feel lost, uncertain, vulnerable. But that's not failure, that's initiation. And if you try to skip that part, if you try to hold on to who you were while reaching for who you're meant to be, you'll split your signal. You'll broadcast incoherence. You'll get stuck in the loop of almost changing, but not quite. That's what's been happening. You've been managing your patterns instead of dismantling them. You've been coping instead of collapsing. You've been editing the symptoms instead of rewriting the script. And now, that's over. Because once you see the mechanism, you can override it. Once you feel the friction, you can lean into it, knowing it's not the enemy. It's the sign that you're on the threshold. The identity is breaking. The old frequency is glitching. You're rebooting the system, but it only works if you stop fighting it. You have to stop trying to fix the old you, and instead, choose to become something entirely new. Not later, not when things settle, not when you feel ready, right now, in this breath. Because that's how the quantum field works. It doesn't wait for you to be comfortable. It waits for you to be clear. So if you're ready to stop rehearsing your old self and start broadcasting something new, it's time to initiate the reset, not just in theory, but in practice. You've seen the science, you've felt the pull. Now let's talk about how to actually do it. This is the part you've been waiting for. The how, the exact framework. You've felt the breakdown, you've sensed the loop, and now you're ready to step into something new, not slowly, but completely. This is the 48-hour quantum reset, a protocol designed to collapse the old frequency and initiate the field of coherence. Follow it fully, and your life won't just feel different. It will begin organizing itself around a new signal. You, rewritten. Step 1. Silence the external. For the next 48 hours, you need to create space. That means cutting the static. No social media, no scrolling, no passive consumption. The old identity feeds on noise, on other people's opinions, energy, and distractions. When you eliminate those inputs, you force your system to face itself. Yes, it may feel uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is the detox. The moment you stop absorbing signals from the outside, your inner signal gets louder, clearer, realer. Turn off the background noise. Choose silence over stimulation. Listen to your breath instead of your feed. Give yourself the space to meet yourself, unfiltered. Step 2. Choose your identity anchor. Ask yourself this question, and answer without overthinking. Who do I choose to become by this time tomorrow? Not what do you want, not what's missing, but who. Choose one phrase that becomes your energetic anchor for the next 48 hours. Some examples: I am rooted. I am clear. I am aligned. I am unstoppable. I am no longer available for chaos. I am already the frequency of abundance. Once you have your phrase, write it down, speak it aloud, whisper it into your palms, look into the mirror, and say it with conviction. Let this phrase become the internal compass that guides every decision, every response, every breath. You're not repeating affirmations for motivation. You're initiating a new vibration. You're broadcasting a new identity. Step 3. Collapse the loop. Next, it's time to release the version of you that can no longer come with you. Take a blank piece of paper. At the top, write this sentence: the version of me that created the old reality believed. Then, let it flow. Write every limiting belief, outdated pattern, emotional habit, or self-image that you know you're ready to let die. Don't edit. Don't justify. Let it pour out. When you finish, do something physical with that page. Burn it, bury it, shred it, and scatter the pieces in the wind. The act itself is symbolic, but the intention is energetic. You are collapsing the loop, severing the broadcast, creating a clear field from which a new signal can emerge. This isn't letting go in theory. This is saying goodbye in practice. Step 4. Return to coherence. Now it's time to enter the body, to rewire the nervous system, not with thought, but with sensation. Stand barefoot on the ground. Place one hand on your belly, one on your heart. Close your eyes. Begin to breathe slowly, in through the nose, out through the mouth. As you do, bring your attention to the base of your spine, your root. This is where your signal begins. This is where the old frequency got trapped. Now we bring it back online. Start to imagine a gentle spiral of energy moving up from your sacrum, through your spine, lifting with every inhale, anchoring with every exhale. Don't force it. Feel it. Your body isn't a machine. It's a transmitter. The more relaxed and present you become, the more your field aligns. Repeat this coherence practice every few hours, even for 2-3 minutes. On a walk, in a quiet room, before a decision, before speaking. This isn't about ritual. It's about rhythm. You're not performing. You're recalibrating. Step 5. Output before input. This is one of the most powerful shifts you can make. Stop starting your day in reaction. Stop letting your first signal of the day be someone else's. From now on, every morning begins with output. Before you check your phone, before you look at a screen, before you let in a single drop of the world, speak your identity anchor aloud. Write something. Move your body. Do anything that comes from your own field, not someone else's. Reality bends for those who broadcast before they consume. Because they're not just reacting to life. They're generating it. You don't need more information. You need more transmission. And if you fall back into old patterns during this process, that's okay. That's expected. But don't spiral. Just return to the anchor, the phrase you chose, the breath, the rhythm. That's the reset button. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to return. Again and again. Each time you do, the signal gets stronger. The field responds faster. Synchronicities arrive with more precision. People reflect your new vibration without even knowing why. Life begins to organize itself around your alignment. Not because the universe is finally working, but because you are. You've stopped collapsing the past. You've stopped broadcasting the frequency of fear. You've changed the signal, and that change has consequences. Beautiful ones, unexpected ones, timeline-shifting ones. Some of them will show up instantly. A rush of clarity, a release of tension, a conversation that opens a door you didn't know was there. Others will arrive quietly, slowly, building over days or weeks, until one morning you look around and realize you're living inside a reality that once only existed in your highest vision. Not because you forced it, but because you remembered how to become it. So as we close this space, not with an ending, but with an invitation. Remember this. You are not here to chase transformation. You are here to transmit it. And now that you've learned how to reset the signal, you might be wondering, how do you know it's actually working? Let's talk about the signs. So how do you know the reset is actually working? It's a fair question because transformation isn't always loud. It's not always fireworks or some cinematic breakthrough. More often, it's subtle, internal, quiet, but unmistakable. It starts as a shift in perception, a pause in reaction, a sense that something in the background has changed. You'll notice space in your mind where there used to be noise, space between thought and action, space between trigger and response, and in that space, clarity. Suddenly, things that used to rattle you don't land the same way. You receive a text that would have sent you spiraling, and instead, you breathe. You face a challenge that once triggered panic, and instead, you feel grounded. That's not willpower. That's frequency coherence. That's your system operating from alignment, not survival. You may feel a light hum in your chest or a warmth in your belly, a subtle sense of rightness with no external cause. That's not random. That's your nervous system downshifting out of hypervigilance and into presence. That's your energy field recalibrating. Other signs? Synchronicities, little winks from the universe. You overhear the exact sentence you needed. The right book shows up. A person calls you out of nowhere with an answer you didn't even know you were seeking. These aren't coincidences. They're confirmations, signals that your frequency is being received and responded to. You may find that people begin to treat you differently without you saying a word. That's because your vibration has shifted. And people don't respond to your words. They respond to your field, to your embodiment. And when your internal world is broadcasting a new frequency, the external world can't help but reflect it. You'll also notice that decisions feel clearer, not necessarily easier, but cleaner. You'll stop looping. You'll stop overthinking. Your yes will come faster. Your no will feel safer. Because the noise has dropped. Because you're no longer outsourcing clarity to others. You've become your own signal tower. And maybe most importantly, you'll feel less need to rush. Urgency fades. Scarcity quiets. You stop grabbing at life. You start receiving it. You stop chasing timelines and begin inhabiting them. That is the mark of quantum shift. When reality begins to orbit around your center, not because you forced it, but because you remembered how to hold it. And if doubt creeps in, because it will. If the old pattern tries to whisper, "This isn't working," pause, breathe. Ask yourself not, "Is this working?" but, "Who am I being right now?" Because results don't always come on your timeline. But feedback, it's instant. And if you feel more centered, more aware, more true, then the reset is working. Even if life hasn't caught up yet, even if nothing outside has changed, you have. And that's what matters most. Because once the internal shift is real, the external becomes inevitable. But don't just take it from theory. Let's bring it to life. Because some people have done this and the results were fast, real, and lasting. You've seen the protocol. Now, let me show you what it looks like in the lives of people who've used it. This isn't just philosophy. This is lived experience. And when you shift your signal, life responds fast. Take Jade, for example. A high-performing creative director who, from the outside, seemed successful. But inside, she was burned out, anxious, and exhausted from chasing approval through performance. She'd been in therapy for years. She'd read every personal development book on the shelf, but nothing stuck. She felt like a machine pretending to be alive. Then she tried the 48-hour reset. She turned off her phone, wrote down the version of herself she was ready to let go of. The overachiever, the people pleaser, the one addicted to doing. She chose the anchor phrase, "I am already whole." And for 2 days, she lived inside that frequency. Every decision, every breath, every interaction filtered through that lens. On the second morning, something cracked open. A long-lost client messaged her out of nowhere. "I don't know why, but I just thought of you. Want to work together again?" The offer was double her usual rate, but it wasn't the money that stunned her. It was the feeling of receiving without forcing, of being chosen without chasing. Then, there's Marcus, a gym owner who had built his life on structure, discipline, and pushing through. But he secretly battled self-doubt that never left. No matter how successful he became, he felt like an imposter, like it could all fall apart if he ever stopped grinding. He found the protocol almost by accident, tried it out of frustration, not hope. But something happened when he let himself stop performing. He chose the anchor, "I am stable, even when still." At first it felt fake, but then the noise quieted. He started to feel okay, not euphoric, just not afraid. For the first time in years. 2 weeks later, he ended a toxic partnership that had drained him for a decade. "I would have never had the clarity to walk away," he told me. "But after the reset, I realized I'm not responsible for keeping broken systems alive." And then there's Rena, a single mom working 3 jobs who felt invisible. She thought frequency work was for spiritual elites, but something in her said, "Try." She chose the identity, "I am visible, I matter." She whispered it under her breath while doing dishes, while walking to work, while brushing her daughter's hair. 48 hours of remembering, 48 hours of no longer shrinking. On the 3rd day, a friend who hadn't spoken to her in months suddenly transferred money into her account. No explanation, just the message, "You popped into my heart today." A coincidence? Maybe. But Rena didn't think so. "It was the first time in years," she said, "that I believed the universe actually knew I existed. You see, the reset isn't about control. It's about coherence. And when coherence happens, even your presence becomes magnetic. People sense it. Circumstances respond. Not because you're manipulating outcomes, but because you've become a different input, a different broadcast, a different cause. And what makes it so powerful is that no one outside you needs to change. You don't have to wait for approval. You don't need someone to open the door. You are the door. These stories aren't special. They're not miracles reserved for the chosen few. They're what happens when ordinary people choose to collapse the old and remember the signal they were born to transmit. And now that you've seen the process and the proof, you have a choice. Not tomorrow, now. Let's talk about what happens if you don't act, and why this moment matters more than ever. There's a moment, right before transformation takes root, when everything inside you goes quiet. It's not fear, it's not confusion, it's clarity disguised as stillness. And if you're paying attention right now, you'll feel it too. The edge of decision, the pull of possibility, the silent invitation to either rise or repeat. Because here's what's real. If you don't shift now, you won't just remain stuck. You'll slip back into the old orbit. Not because you don't care, but because momentum has a way of pulling us into whatever we've practiced most. And you've practiced surviving. You've practiced shrinking. You've practiced over-explaining, overthinking, and over-efforting in the name of staying safe. But the version of you that can afford to delay no longer exists. That version has expired. You've already glimpsed what alignment feels like. You've remembered what it's like to feel connected, lucid, electric. And if you ignore that pull, you won't be the same. You'll feel the friction more deeply. The loop will feel tighter. The old life will grow louder. Not because it's where you belong, but because your nervous system is sounding the alarm that you're betraying what you now know to be true. You are no longer confused. You are no longer lost. You are no longer waiting. You are broadcasting. And what you broadcast from this moment forward will determine which reality roots itself into your timeline. Not through wishful thinking, through energetic authority, through what you're willing to claim, embody, and repeat. Not once in a while, but daily, deliberately, relentlessly. The reset doesn't work because it's trendy. It works because it returns you to coherence, to wholeness, to choice. And choice, when made from alignment, becomes an access point. Everything that follows bends around it. So this isn't another to-do. It's a becoming. And it's the only true way out of the loop of self-sabotage, struggle, and limitation. And that's why this moment, for you, is so critical. Because you're at the edge. You've seen the door. You've felt the truth. And the universe is waiting to see what you'll choose. So what's it going to be? More of the same, or the quantum reset? The choice is yours, and it begins now. And if something inside you shifted, if even for a moment you felt your field soften, your breath deepen, your identity begin to rewire, then don't let it fade. Let this be more than another video you scroll past. Let this be the one that marks the line between before and after. The moment you chose to stop watching your life and start tuning it. So write it in the comments. One word, one frequency, one identity you're ready to live from. Let it be seen. Let it become real. And if this message met you exactly where you are, then honor that. Hit the like button not just to support the channel, but to anchor the moment in your nervous system. Let that simple act say, yes, I felt that. And subscribe, not for more content, but to stay connected to the version of you that's no longer willing to go back to sleep. The version of you that's done shrinking. Because the field responds when you act from alignment. And this is your signal. Don't silence it. Strengthen it. We're just getting started.